live.
Awesome sauce.
Welcome to Two Queens and Crystal Things, the podcast where we are on some manifest your life.
Woo.
Shift your mind.
Come on.
Shift it to the right, shift it to the left. And raise the consciousness type of shit. I'm Christie.
And I am Mia. And you can consider us your spiritual girlfriends for the next hour or so. Hey, y'all.
Hey, I feel like it's been a minute.
That's because it's Friday. We're actually recording today and releasing it today because the queens had to go stretch out and, take a break.
Yeah, we had to take a break.
So we did a little traveling. But last week's topic of discussion is a reminder on how life is happening by you and not to you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So hopefully after listening to last week's episode, you packed up that why me mentality. Because we are dropping, we are not victims, we are victors. We are creators.
Drop it like it's hot.
Okay, so we dropped that off. Thank you. Bye-bye. Just got to remember, it's not happening to you. It's happening rather in response to you. How you respond to what happens to you is what creates your life.
Mm-hmm.
So when we awaken or raise our consciousness, we start to understand how much control we have over our lives. And this is where we become the creators of our life story. That main character energy. You write this. You create this. Okay. All right. So, Chrissy, what are we talking about today?
That main character energy is the business.
Everything. Romanticize your life.
Yes.
Because why not?
You are the main character. Okay, so today's topic of discussion is an area that I've been working on more recently. And so in a true Queen's fashion, I thought to share with you all in a means to help. So today we're going to be discussing healing your inner child. And so this term, I'm sure you all have heard it, go back to your inner child, forgive your inner child.
That's a thing.
It is a thing. So this term was initially coined by Carl Jung, and it's a term that's used frequently in psychology and psychotherapy, in the psychology and the psychotherapy space. Also, if you don't understand the spiritual component of the inner child, you will have difficulty healing it. So there are components of like the mental piece of the inner child, but there's also a spirituality piece that we need to understand.
So what's the inner child? Your inner child is often thought of as like the semi-independent, a sub-personality, subordinate to the waking conscious mind. Okay, so it's a semi-independent sub-personality to your waking conscious mind, and it's housed in your consciousness. So it's something that's we're not necessarily conscious of,
right,
but it's working. It's in there, and it's happening. Okay, so it's used to describe challenges that we may have faced as a child that have shaped us into the adults we are today.
Yep.
And when we have a hard time moving forward in life, it can oftentimes be attributed to the need to heal our inner child. And when I tell you
say that again.
This right here, this is such a big part of my journey.
Yeah. Like, and a lot of people's too.
Whew.
Mine too. And it's not necessarily like, it doesn't have to be like your inner child. It can be your inner teen. It can be your, your inner young adult.
Yeah.
And I think that's something important for everyone to know. So components of the inner child reside in your mind, as Mia mentioned. But one of the things that's important for people to understand is that it has its own energy house. And so there are some people who believe that the inner child lives in the root chakra.
Really?
Mm-hmm. Which is thought to be...
That makes total sense, though.
Yeah.
That makes total sense. Yeah.
And actually, the root chakra is thought to be the first chakra that's formed in vitro. And the key characteristics of the root chakra, and I think many of you know this, is safety and security, physical survival. Yep. Some people also believe that the imprint of love is programmed in the root chakra at a young age. And then as we get older, we move through the chakras up, like we grow through them, moving up. It also governs your legs and your feet. It also governs your bones, but it literally gives us order and structure. And the root chakra also is responsible for our immune system.
Okay, so question on this. Because we talk about, when we are being formed as in vitro, our heart is our first organ. That, full organ that's formed.
Right.
From a energetic standpoint, they're saying your root chakra.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't.
Because think about it, you're in the womb, you're safe, you're secure.
Yeah.
You know, and you don't know, like as a child, you don't understand what love truly is. It's basically like what is being passed down you through that root chakra as a child.
That's why it's so important. This brings up the point. That's why it's so important, ladies, as much as possible when we are pregnant, that we are very mindful of the way that we speak to ourselves,
mm-hmm.
to our unborn child.
Yep.
The energy that we put. We like even little things saying like, "Oh, I'm so big," or you know what I mean. Like,
right.
We want to speak life and love over our bodies as they are changing, because then you're speaking life and love over over the baby.
Mm-hmm.
Oh God, I did not think of that. That's good. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So if there's a dysfunction in your root chakra, a child can stay there,
mm-hmm.
and that consciousness way longer. That makes so much sense to me. So if we're stunted in our chakra development, then that means our consciousness remains lower. So if your first chakra, think about this, you guys. If your first chakra is there for the foundation of an unborn child worldview, right? It's there. It's built in vitro.
Yep.
And if they stay there, that's how you view the world.
Yep.
So we live in our five senses. So as a child, which is connected to the roots, so if we live in our five senses, especially as a child, then we're still connected to our roots.
Yeah.
So the root chakra and the inner child, they go hand in hand. Safety, security,
mm-hmm.
yes. And you think about, how some children are, they get ill a lot, often, always. This makes sense to me. Mm-hmm. So sorry. So as soon as you are, you jump on that spaceship,
yep.
and come into this world, you are in first chakra consciousness. So think about, because what else could you be in? If you really think about that, you're in first chakra consciousness, because I cry, come protect me. All my needs are
give me security, give me food.
Love. Yeah.
And I will say that the more sensitive you are as an empath or spiritually, any dysfunction in your family or as a child can throw the chakra out of balance. So it doesn't matter if it's like sexual abuse or emotional or physical abuse. It can even be subtle things, like things that you've inherited from your family, or it can be, and I don't like to use the word trauma because that's a buzzword, but challenges that have been passed through your family's generation. It can be something as simple as ignoring a child. There are children who have grown up who were ignored by their family members, or growing up in a racist household. Those are, you have to go into the first chakra to recognize the belief, heal them, and then let them go. And so another thing, too, is as a child, I think I'm good at this, too, is that when there is challenges or trauma that occur during childhood, we can disassociate and fragment ourselves into pieces for survival. So it's important to love yourself back. Like as you are going through this process of healing, it's important to love yourself back into being a whole person, because trauma, and sometimes there are different agencies that will use trauma against children to purposefully fragment them and use them in different ways.
So you know what? We talk about, even in relationship, in our relationship episode, we talked about how sometimes when you break up with someone and you're not able to move forward a little bit, you're like, why can't I move forward? This is because you still left some pieces and fragments of yourself. You need to claim your whole self back. And if you think about, we always talk about this, guys, the most important relationship that you will ever have is the one with yourself. So there are moments in your life where you have to go pick up the fragmented pieces of yourself that you left behind so that you can be whole the next time.
Yep.
And this inner child work so hits on that.
Yep.
So your relationships are a mirror to your life. And all the relationship trauma, air quoting trauma, is not necessarily from other people. Sometimes it's from ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ooh.
Yep. And then just going into the spiritual characteristics of the inner child, that's the part of you that's playful, that's curious, that's loving, that's innocent, that sees the world from the lens of wonder. And so that's like on the spiritual side of what how the inner child is represented. So how do you know you have inner child healing to do?
Okay.
How do you know?
I'm going to speak from personally here for me. I knew that I had some inner child healing work to do when I would always feel like I didn't have a childhood. Like from 0 to 9, it was not awesome at all. I was in a very, you guys are going to talk about this, was, growing up with my biological mom who was unable because she was a crackhead. I did a lot of things to learn how to survive. Mm-hmm. And then it just became a part of who I was. But when I knew that I had some inner child healing to do is when I started to see myself and my relationships and the parts that were difficult for me. I had a very, 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 very difficult time not feeling chosen.
Yeah.
Like, I'm in a relationship and it's just like, I felt like that overall, any and all things that I should be chosen in a relationship by my partner. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a lot to put on somebody, in hindsight.
Yeah.
But it's because I'm waiting for them to, the reason though is because I want them to feel something that I didn't have because I didn't feel chosen as a child. Mm-hmm. So for me, part of and I had a few things I need to go back and do, but this was a huge one for me. And it's something that has helped me in like even to this day, I had to go back and choose her and let little Mia know that I got you, and thank her for everything that she did to get us to where we are. Because if she didn't choose survival, we wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And so I had to go back and tell her like I love her, and baby, I got us. You are chosen. You are beautiful. I felt unseen, and so that for me, oh my goodness, like I'm just crying thinking about it, y'all. That was. That was very deep for me, but the beautiful thing about it is when I figured out that I could go back and heal that, and so it opened up so much more for me.
That's
so
powerful.
Now I'm able, I know how to choose myself, and I'm not looking for somebody else to do that for me. But of course, you know how the energy works, because now I choose myself. That energy gets matched. So that's like this inner child healing. That was a thing.
And actually, some of the stuff that you talked about, we'll talk a little bit more further into the podcast. But that is for real.
I know. I mean, like a whole, and not just one time. And because sometimes it takes a while to. Because when we think about trauma that we've experienced as a child, and we can like. You can ask yourself a few questions to see if you have trauma to heal.
Yeah.
Sometimes we think about, well, I can't heal that because it was done to me, especially as a child. Do you know what I mean? But you guys, we can't go, remember, we always have us. We only have us. We can control us. Mm-hmm. And if you felt unloved, go back and love. If you felt unseen, go back and tell your inner child, I see you. And if there was physical abuse, you hug her. You know what I mean? There's so many, you guys, like that's a real thing. Okay? So what are some of the questions? Like people can ask themselves, like, okay, do I have some inner child healing to do? Because I know I did.
Yeah, I definitely do. So number one, I mean, that's pretty obvious, plain, but have you experienced childhood trauma? And it doesn't have to be a sexual abuse. It can be your parents fighting. Maybe you grew up in a household where your parents fought all the time. Or maybe you grew up in a household where you were kind of ignored. I mean, I remember I had a conversation with my parents. I was the youngest. My two sisters were the oldest, but they were closer in age. So I was always left behind. And so I feel like I was left to my own devices. And I expressed that to them. And I know that is some issue there that needs to work on, but me vocalizing it to them was helpful.
It was helpful for you.
It was
to be
helpful
able to say it. So let me ask a question. Did they, once you vocalized it, because this is the real thing, were you expecting a response? Were you expecting an apology, or was it just the power in you being able to speak it?
The latter.
Okay.
I needed to get it out. And they did respond. And, of course, they apologized. And it wasn't their intention, of course. But I had to say it because as a 45-year-old woman, I never shared it until this year.
Interesting. Okay.
But another question you can ask yourself is, did I feel safe as a child?
Oh, my God. I can say unequivocally I did not. No. This was one of the questions I had to... And you guys, this stuff resonates so much in our adult life.
Yeah.
I think I've made a few relationship decisions based on, and I don't necessarily think it's a bad thing, but about that because I felt safe.
Oh, I know I did.
Like James
For
there,
sure.
I'm like, I know
I
did. That he gonna go there with me if it's time. You know what I mean? Like, but protect it.
Mm-hmm.
And stuff. Woo! Being able to feel safe as a child, because that's not something we should have to worry about as children. You know what I mean? And when that's taken away from us, I don't think adults understand what that does. Like, to me, when Jade says stuff like, I know my mama will be her before me. You know, that makes me feel good because she knows it's not you're not the first or the second. It's not going to happen. She might think I'm a little cuckoo because I'm probably a little overboard because of what I don't want her to ever feel like she doesn't know. Like, I legit did not know, like, when I'm going to be okay. Like, I have to do a lot of things to protect myself and hide.
And as a child, that has to be...
I used to have to put the dresser in front of, push the dresser in front of the door. My mom had a little crack here. It was a lot. A child should never have to feel that.
Yeah.
And so I'll probably go a little overboard there, but hopefully she knows. Because I ain't playing.
I'm sure she knows.
But, so another question is, did I feel loved? Now, I'm going to tell you why I think this is a hard question to ask. So like we just said, in vitro, we kind of learn what love is. So that's what I'm saying, ladies, the way that we talk to our children is so important. What if we believe that we were loved based on because that's what I know love to be. So there are lots and lots of people who believe love. You don't love me unless you hurt me.
Yep.
And tell me that you're sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Unless there is some pain involved. There's so many of us who believe that love means suffering.
Yeah. Suffering
for love. And I mean, that, you guys, and as a child, like, that's love. Mm-hmm. Just think about it. The generation, that we used to get spankings, your parents would be like, I'm doing this because I love you. And that's teaching your child. We just need to be careful with that word. It's teaching a child. Love hurts. And that's not our intention. Because what we're trying to say is, I'm not going to let you slip away and you need to be held accountable for your actions. And this is how I'm choosing to show you that. But we say things like, I'm doing this because I love you, because we do love you. Yeah. But now we're teaching them that, you know what I mean? So as an adult, looking back, this is a different type of question. Because then you're like, well, wait a minute, did I feel loved? Mm-hmm. That's a good question to ask. And like you said, they feel love through their root chakra, their first chakra, and not their heart at this point. Right. Because that's safety and security. Oh, my goodness. Yeah. I can literally see women shaking their head like,
That makes so much sense. Yeah. Another question that you can ask is, did I feel nurtured or welcome, like I belong, or did I feel like an outsider? And again, this was something else that I talked to my family about, because I felt like an outsider. I mean, of course, I was the black sheep. If anyone were to do something crazy or, off the cuff, it would be Christie. Something that was last minute, just whatever. That would be Christie, because she's the free spirit. But I also shared with them that hurt me because I felt like it was almost like I couldn't be trusted to just like take care of my kids. Like when they found out I was pregnant, like, oh my gosh, what kind of mother is she going to be? I remember when they would introduce us to their friends, oh, you know, this child, she is a reporter with Fox, and this child, she is Midwest manager for pharmaceutical sales with Pfizer, and this child, she's an artist, she's a dancer.
Oh, she's Christie.
Right.
That's our baby Christie.
Right, and so I would always, and it was always like coming to me, it's just like, let's see what they're going to say this time, and that created something, and that was something that I recently shared.
Have you seen, when you just said that, you made me think, have you seen these memes? There's this one guy who does these wonderful videos, and it's like the oldest child, the middle child, and the youngest child, how they react to different situations. I mean, he's doing it in a comedic way. They're really funny, but it's so true. And oftentimes we will assign, as parents, we will assign these roles, these stereotypical roles to our children. Like, oh, that's the middle child. You know they're going to do something crazy. And everybody knows the young child gets away with everything and they don't care about nothing. And they, you know what I mean? And that's not fair. And if we start assigning these stereotypes, we're just, it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. You prophesize that over your child's life. So now, you know what I mean? And that's how they're acting.
Right.
Yeah. You were that one.
I was that one.
Now, here's a good one. And like I said, this is what brought me. Oh, boy. So I was looking at my chart, guys, and I say I can't tell you how much relationships have been a part of my journey and my awakening for me, unfortunately. How are my relationships?
Yeah.
Especially our romantic relationships. Again, you know, our relationships are a mirror
to
who
we are.
Mm-hmm. And when I started looking at that mirror, I'm like, wait a minute, something ain't right here. These relationships can create issues if you have any child healing to do.
Yeah.
They cause us to be, relationships can cause us to feel vulnerable or unsafe. And so when you think about it, you want to be able to be vulnerable in a relationship. If there's something stopping you from feeling like you can be vulnerable, there may be something there we need to, that kind of need to go back into and look into. If you feel unsafe, and even if it's not physically unsafe to be who you truly are.
Yes. Amen.
Dang!
Say
when
it.
You feel like I did not feel safe to truly just be me. Like I said, I was Play-Doh. I had a mask for every person I was around. Okay, this person needs me to be this person needs me to be this. So I didn't look at it as I feel unsafe.
Right.
But I knew I later, of course, realized I was not authentic in any space with anybody because you can't be 10 different people.
Yeah, you can't.
You know what I mean? And you're maneuvering, but that was how I learned how to survive as a child. And I just went straight. And like I say it all the time, not going to the parent block. That was very useful for me. Like it was very useful. It made me feel safe because I felt like I had control over the relationship. So I never had to be vulnerable because I could just be. Yeah. You know what I mean?
And we talked about compartmentalizing things, and that's something that I learned to do, and that was how I learned to survive, and that's how I learned to continue. Yeah, I might be hurt. I'll brush it on the rug. I'm going to keep moving. That's how you learn how to function, and unfortunately, that's not a good way to function. But so let's see. What's another question that you can ask yourself? Something else is, is your root chakra balanced? If you see someone who does Reiki or an energy work. Also, when your root chakra is not balanced, you can be a person who is controlling. So that is me. I have my tendencies, and especially when I have my eating disorder too. That was my way to control.
Yeah.
Because I was I was going away to college. My body was changing. I had all these demands with dance, trying to be perfect, looking at myself half naked in the whatever. But I controlled my food because I felt like my life outside of me was crazy and I couldn't control it. So eating became my method of control.
You know what? And I've said this before, you guys. And when we think about in a more spiritually aware space, and we start to say, like, hey, I have control over myself. Eating is one of the first ways. That's why a lot of spiritual people are like, okay, I don't think they stop, they fast, or they don't, they decide to become vegetarians or vegans. It's just like, I have control over this body. So it goes both ways. You know, it's two sides.
Just make sure it's healthy.
Right, exactly. You just be healthy with yourself, but that totally makes sense.
Yeah.
This one was a big one for me, guys. Asking yourself, do you fear abandonment? Woo!
Yeah.
Y'all about to make me cry. For the longest time, I was so afraid of being abandoned that I would leave and act like it didn't. I mean, and I would abandon so I would not be abandoned.
Right. And that says right there that it has affected your adult life.
Absolutely. You know, I like, you know, and especially in a romantic relationship, if it started to, you know, to get inconsistent, I'll break up with somebody fast. I'm gone. You know what I mean? And like, dang, nobody can have a bad day. Like, you know what I mean? Like seriously. And when I couldn't do that, you know, so, you know, if you're married, you can't just be like, you know, I'm going every time something didn't. But when I would fear abandonment, so I would start to abandon feelings. So I would pull back. And I think that's emotionally manipulative.
Yeah.
Of course, I didn't think that's what I was doing at the time, but the truth of the matter is that is emotionally manipulative. So I will pull back feelings, like, because I'm so, and people notice it, and especially in relationships, I'm so like all in and like, ooh, like touchy feeling and buying your favorite things. I'm just like I'm like that. So then when I felt like you're like the other shoe was about to drop, like then I would start taking away pieces. And then of course now they're looking like you acting funny. I'm like, I ain't acting funny. I'm matching your energy. Like that's a real thing.
Yeah. This is funny. Because this is so me. Am I afraid of getting sick? Y'all, when I tell you, I couldn't even spell hypochondriac when I was little, but I was in the nurse's office every day, self-diagnosing myself, like for real.
You're like,
And then when my mother was a teacher, and when she started working at my school, the nurse gave her all the deets.
No, she did.
She was like, oh yeah, Christy. Oh, I know her. She's in my nurse's office all the time. I'm like, great, thanks. But so people who are afraid of getting sick, hypochondriacs, this is an issue of the first chakra because the first chakra is responsible for your immune system. So you want to also, and I say this, all begins with energy, and then if you don't get it checked or get it balanced, it will eventually manifest in illness. What's another question?
Do you trust life?
Yeah.
Do you believe? Well, we talk about the universe has your back
all the time.
Do you believe that you're being guided and supported in your life? And we talk from a spiritual standpoint. When there's a dysfunction in your chakra, especially your root chakra, you feel like it makes you feel like you have to fight to survive, and you feel unsafe.
Yep.
But when you know that you are supported and guided, no matter what, from a spiritual standpoint, that allows you to move a little differently. It gives you a little bit more confidence. But sometimes it's hard to get to that place. So when people are going through a spiritual journey, you'll hit these bumps, right? Just like, okay, I can't. Why am I not moving past this point? Sometimes it's inner child healing.
Yep.
So if you have to go back and check to see what's going on up in there.
And
sometimes it'd be like, just saying going back to the younger you, the teenage you. And even if you're not at the point where you feel spiritually that you are guided and supported, which you always are, you are never alone. Going back and choosing you and saying, I trust me.
Yep.
I trust me. So, hey, little Mia, I got you. I trust life because I'm here and I'm doing this. Because this stuff is it's huge. Like And I will say, just
when you think
emotionally, probably some of the more difficult moments in my journey doing this inner child work. But it's
worth it though.
It's so worth it. It's so worth it. I mean, it's like an immediate. I never forget going back and talking to little Mia. I mean, I was boo-hooing, and and it's so crazy, y'all, because if you look at a picture of me at that time and a picture of my daughter, it kind of freaks me out.
Oh yeah, that picture, yeah.
Like it freaks
twins,
me, right? It's just, but that being able to do that allowed me to better love my child, and I could tell that I was able to feel more vulnerable. It's like it opened up something in me where I just moved different in this time and in this space. And if I hadn't done that, I wouldn't be able to.
Do the healing work, you guys. It's so important. Okay, so let's talk about. So we're going to share 4 tips to help heal.
Yes.
So number 1. And we've been talking about this. Become aware of your inner child and create a dialogue. It's very important that your inner child needs to be heard. They have to be heard. They have to be seen. They have to be loved. And so as you begin your healing process, this is one of the most important things you can do. Become aware of your inner child and start talking to them. And you can do this during meditation. You can do it sitting down. I mean, whatever is comfortable for you. For me, meditation is best and most helpful. Also, another tip is to do root chakra healing work. So honestly, you cannot fully heal strictly by therapy alone. It's really, this is a multidimensional perspective, which also needs to be addressed multidimensionally. So we're talking about spiritually, emotionally, mentally, physically. So if you're able to do therapy and do some energy work, that's going to definitely be helpful. So you can do like grounding work. There are grounding meditations out there. Something else that I heard is helpful. You can go outside and you can stomp your feet on the ground. You can pound your feet. Again, body work, energy work. That's the stuff that we do. Another tip that you can do to help heal is to deprogram from past lives and multiple generations. Write down what your family believes. Is it the negative beliefs you need to get rid of? And be objective. Allow yourself to be in a neutral space. What beliefs were you imparted? What beliefs were imparted into you that you no longer resonate with? So you have to sit back and assess those beliefs. And then also another way that you can heal is affirmations, mantras, or guided meditations. The inner child needs to be seen, heard, and loved. When the inner child is wounded, it can take control of your life. It can. And so the moment that you acknowledge your inner child, I think that's a huge step forward. But some examples of affirmations you can use are: you are safe, you are not in danger, you are loved. So those are some tips to heal your inner child. Whew. Okay, so what is your takeaway?
We're worth it.
Yep.
I know that sometimes some of these ideas, when we talk about healing, it seems like, how do I go back and heal my inner child? That time is gone. But you are always you.
Mm-hmm.
So the pieces that are broken that we haven't gone back to heal, it's like a wound. And if you have a wound that you don't heal, so it never scares, it doesn't heal.
Or you keep picking at it.
It's like an open wound. So you do have to go back. And even if it's hard for you to visualize going back to, the childhood version of yourself, you can very much so go back to the piece of you that needs to be healed, that was traumatized or hurt, or it just hasn't been dealt with from that inner child. Yep. So we're worth the work. And I think this is some of the best work we can do for ourselves.
Yep, I agree. And my takeaway is that I got a lot of inner child work to do because I feel like out of all those questions, I got a lot. But no, I mean, just like Mia said, we are worth it. I think the first thing is having the courage to acknowledge that you have some wounded inner child, and to address it. But it's hard.
I mean, you guys, it is. It is hard, but oh my God, it's yeah. I mean,
you're worth the work, though.
Definitely worth the work. And so let's get into the simple work because this is something.
Let's get into it.
So there's a couple of things I want you guys to do. After you have kind of listened to what we talked about here, and you've asked yourself some of these questions. This sounds familiar or something that you're like, okay, I want to get into this a little bit. I want you to do a little meditation with yourself and just imagine that you are going back to the younger version of yourself, that time in your life where you're like, I know exactly where I need to go, because trust me, we all know for ourselves where it is that we need to go. And sometimes our inner child work means that we have to go back and parent ourselves. Sometimes we have to go be the parent that we needed for us, that we needed when we were a child. And also, side note, you guys, sometimes you gotta give our parents some grace, okay? At the end of the day, they're just the spaceship that we chose to travel in, and they did what they thought was best to do at that time at the level of consciousness that they were at. And here's the crazy part. We chose for them to teach us the lessons that we learned from them. Okay?
Yes, we did.
So give them some grace, and having forgiveness for our parental units actually does a lot in helping to heal your inner child. Okay, so back to what I'm talking about. So we're going to go back. We're going to speak to that young version of ourselves, and we're going to parent. And we're going to talk to, so I would go and talk to young Mia, and I would talk to her as her parent and tell her what she needed to hear. Let her know that she was chosen, that she was loved. And when you go back and have this conversation, if this is difficult for you, think about it like this. If you have a child, if there's any mommies listening, or if you don't have a child, you do know what you would say to your child in this space that you're in now, in this more conscious space, and understanding what it means to feel love and what you need. So just imagine like you're talking to your child. What would you tell your child in this time, in that space, at that moment? I'm sure if you're listening to this, you're in a different mindset. Yep. You'll be able to go back and have this conversation, and you would say, wait a minute, hold on, but you know what I mean? So go back and have that conversation. And here's the thing. Do it as many times as you need to. It may be different areas and times and space. Give yourself the space, spread it out as it feels comfortable and good for you. But go back and have that time. Now, for those of us who like to kind of write things down, when you're having that moment, when you're having one of those moments, and you answer some of these questions to yourself, all I want you to do is write a letter. Write a letter to the younger version of yourself. God, this is cathartic. Like, for real. Seal it with a kiss. Bless it. Write it with the intention to heal. Have a heart of forgiveness. Have a heart of authenticity. But more importantly, write this letter to your younger self so that you are able to move forward for yourself. Mm-hmm. So we stop looking outside of us for something that we did not experience or needed as children, and we're looking for someone to give us in our adult lives. You guys, that is not fair. No one can fill us up but ourselves. They can add to us. You know what I mean? So putting that type of expectation puts a lot of pressure on your relationship that doesn't necessarily need to be there. That's why we talk about coming to a relationship whole. Because when you're whole and they're whole, oh my goodness, it's a whole beautiful thing. But if we're having some inner work that we need to do, and if you're in a relationship right now and you realize you have some inner child work to do, allow yourself to do that and watch how your relationship, how you're able to love, how it exponentially increases, and it can help you in your relationship. Okay? So go ahead and write that letter to yourself. And again, for some people that may be too much, too confrontational. That's why I say you have an option of...
I like the letter.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like meditating and visualizing it. So whatever works for you, but do the work.
Yeah. There is no right or wrong way. Whatever feels good.
So those are just some ideas. All right. What is our crystal?
So the crystal of today, which I'm actually quite excited about. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, though, but it's called Boostamite. So the element is fire, the chakra is root, and it also is good for the sacral, for sexual and creative, which is in the sacral chakra. So Boostamite clears and opens the root chakra, so it allows for greater vitality and enjoyment of physical life. This particular stone combines well with rhodochrosite. That's how you pronounce it. Rhodochrosite for work concerning the healing of the inner child. So in conjunction with rhodochrosite, it's really good at healing the inner child. But it also encourages one's sense of play. It brings forward repressed memories of grief, woundings, fear, or even happy times which may have slipped out of consciousness. The stone can help one to remember to be present in all aspects of life. And so the energy of the stone helps one to lighten up and to let go of overly restrictive, self-imposed rules, which many of us, including myself, have put on ourselves. Let it go. But it can also be valuable work to work with for those who need to feel optimistic or who have to face challenges with a can-do attitude. So this is Boostamite. I really think it's a really great crystal. Really good if you are really wanting to connect with that inner child, but it's also good if you are wanting to start with the healing process. So, Mia, have you heard of this crystal before?
Yes. I can't find any, actually. But when I remember...
Isn't it pretty?
Yes, it's gorgeous.
It's like beautiful. It's like a beautiful pink.
It's really beautiful. When I think about this crystal, I hear Erykah Badu, "Bad lady."
Oh, you do?
Yes, because I feel like it helps you get rid of emotional baggage. So when I was, and the only reason that I even know about this crystal is, in part of my journey, is I was searching for different healing energies from from different crystals. I came across this, and I remember looking up like, oh my God, this crystal is so beautiful. I haven't.
It's really pretty.
I haven't found one yet, and I want, and there's some online, but you got I want to touch it because it's different. Yeah. I'm like, I really want to touch it, but so that's how I even know about it. But it just made me feel like it was something that I wanted at the time to be able to get some of. I had some baggage. I'm walking around like the bag lady. So that's what got.
But we all are. We are all walking around with some baggage that we are pulling into our adult lives, into our relationships. I saw this affirmation pertaining to this crystal, and I thought it was really great to share, so I wanted to share it with you. I have not worked with this crystal, so I'm actually going to look for it myself. I've never worked with it, so I'm really curious to feel the energy too. Mm-hmm. But the affirmation is, I embrace with joy my physical and spiritual selves, knowing them to be one and the same. Ooh. And I thought that was cool because we had talked about, when you're a child and you have that inner child wound, you have those fractured pieces of yourself, and this crystal actually helps to bring them together. But this affirmation is really cool.
So, okay, message for the day, you guys. Oh, it's a full moon today, by the way.
Yes, it is. So, what is it? The buck moon? I think it's the buck moon.
Remember. I know it's a full moon in Aquarius.
Yeah, I think it's the buck moon.
So you guys listen. So if you guys haven't done any releasing rituals or ceremonies, it's a good night to do it. Give yourself a good bath. But so today, this weekend, I was in this week. Excuse me. I went to New Orleans, and I had a wonderful time. I went to eat, and I ate all the foods. Okay, I ate them all. And shout out to, oh my goodness, I can't remember her page. It's Voodoo Curves, I believe.
Oh yeah,
she's one of the one of our listeners.
Yeah,
and she came in and met me out.
Oh, she did?
Yes, she did.
Oh, nice.
We had a good little time.
Oh,
so
good.
Fun. So thank you.
Shout out.
It was so fun. We had a really good time. But so as I was, New Orleans is a very, I love New Orleans.
I do too.
If you want to feel a spiritual connection, it's there. Okay, it's a lot of energy there. Protect yourself, do what good feels good for you. But so I had some great dreams, and one of the messages that came to me while I was in New Orleans, and I want to share with you guys because I think it's a message for all of us. Sometimes when we talk about perception, and we're waiting for everything to go back to normal. Okay, you guys.
Yeah.
So let's take what Spirit says about that. As those who are looking to ascend ourselves into a different dimension in a time and a space, who really are, when we say raising our consciousness and shifting the mind, not only of ourselves but as a collective, we need to adjust our perception of what we believe is normal.
Yes.
So when we talk about, I want everything to go back to normal, Spirit is asking you, do you remember what that was? So in order for us to create a new world, when you are raising the consciousness, you guys, that means we are exposing quite a bit. There will be a lot of things that I'm not talking about that before. There will be a lot of institutions and things that we trusted and believe in that will be exposed for what they really are.
I'm waiting.
So embrace this time where it will seem like it's the shitstorm, excuse me, y'all. And that will be the normal for a minute, but it's almost like it has to be a clearing.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There has to be a clearing. So Spirit wants you to be ready to accept the clearing because it has been very clear. They were very clear with me that the clearing is coming. So we need to shift our perception. And sometimes when we shift our perception, it's not a physical or tangible thing. It's literally shifting the way that we think about things and the way that we see things. So if we're opening our consciousness and we're raising our consciousness, this is one of those times when, as spiritual people, we need to call ourselves as guys. It's not raising like, oh, love and light. When we say raising and opening, you guys, we're talking about for what it truly is, okay? So in order to create what it is you want, we have to be open to seeing what it is. So we're talking about we're going, I can't wait for things to go back to normal. Do you really mean that?
Right.
Because if you're ready for it to go back to normal, then you're not raising your consciousness and shifting your mind because you're trying to get it back to where it was. And we are here as healers and those who are awakened. We are here to create a new world. We came here for a reason. Some of us came here to destroy it.
Yep.
And some of us came here to create it. It doesn't matter where you are in that. Just know it is not going to be the same. But Spirit wants you to know that you have the power. You and all of us, each and individually, have the power to play our part in this creation, in this destruction and this creation. Do not be afraid of your power. And when I say Spirit was straight, like it is time to embrace the full fire that you are. And embrace your power, your action. Open your eyes to yourself. Because the more that we open our eyes to who we are and the divinity in us, and the fact that I said sometimes that we are creators, We don't have to adjust our life to fit to something that we know is not right. And that's what we're trying to do when we say, I can't wait for things to go back to normal.
Right.
Now you're trying to adjust. As an awakened soul, you're trying to go adjust yourself back into that box.
Yep.
And Spirit's like, that's not what we did all this work for. We did not do all this work to go back to what it was. It's time, and know that we are covered and protected, but they are not our saviors. We are. The Spirit is here to guide us, to remind us, to awaken us, but understand we are our own saviors. Wake them in love. And they love us. And I love you too. But it's time for us to embrace the fullness of who we are. It's time. It's honestly, truly, and just be ready. We didn't go through all this for nothing. We are covered. We created this. And now we know what we're doing. Okay? All right, y'all. That's the message.
That was good. I hope you all found this episode to be very helpful.
Yes.
We are at our time, but thank you all for listening to Two Queens and Crystal Things. Before we go, of course, show us some love. Continue to ask us questions. Follow our Instagram page. You can always email us at info@twoqueensandcrystalthings.com, or you can DM us on Instagram on our Two Queens page.
Yes.
Also, don't forget to follow us on our personal pages on Instagram. So Mia, I always brag about her. She is one of the best readers. She does Akashic record reading. She is an intuitive healer. She does Reiki. What else? Sound. So I would definitely reach out to her if you are looking for guidance or you want to be awakened and you want direction. She is definitely your person to go to. And you can find her.
You can find me in the A. No.
At Wings Unleashed 444.
My sister,
yes,
Christie, is
that's
great
me.
For energy. That crystal healing, angelic working, and sound healing. Because we actually went and did sound healing classes together.
Yes, it was so fun.
She did a session on me, was that last week or 2 weeks ago?
It was like 2 weeks ago.
Oh, girl, I was floating off the table.
Mia likes to travel.
So, and it's so funny because we were just talking about, with our chakra stuff, something that would be helpful if you're going to try to do this inner child work is doing some energy healing. Okay?
Yep.
And that's helpful for that. And you can find Christie on IG at Christie. That's Christie with an I-E. That's Christie R.
Yes,
Edwards.
not a Y. Thank you.
No Y. It's I-E. So she can find her there. And thank you, guys.
Yes, thank you so much.
You.
Thank you for waiting for this episode.
Yes.
We appreciate you guys as always.
I want you guys to hopefully get something out of this. Reach out to us. We respond all the time. So
yes, Mia's good at responding. So thank you all. Light, peace, love,
and soul.
And soul.
All right, thank you.
Bye.